Eddard Stark, more commonly known as Ned, was the head of House Stark, the Lord of Winterfell, Lord Paramount and Warden of the North, and Hand of the King to Robert Baratheon. Ned was a dedicated husband and father, an honourable lord, and a loyal friend. Unfortunately, his loyalty wasn't a mutual trait shared by Petyr Baelish, who betrayed Stark, leading to his imprisonment and eventual execution. Born as the second son of Lord Rickard Stark, who served Aerys II Targaryen as Warden of the North, Eddard grew to become a powerful man, holding several titles throughout his life. Ned's rise in power came when his father and brother Brandon were executed by the Mad King, resulting in Stark inheriting Rickard's responsibilities, serving Robert instead of Aerys Targaryen. Brandon was going to marry Lady Catelyn of House Tully, but due to his death, she was wed to Eddard instead. Baratheon's quest to take the Iron Throne from the Mad King had Stark serve as a general in several major battles. However, during the conflict, his sister Lyanna died in his arms. He always felt the losses of his family, regularly visiting his sister's tomb, lighting a candle for her. Though Ned and Catelyn hardly knew one another before their marriage, they formed a strong relationship, creating a loving marriage. Together they had 5 children, with Ned having a particular soft spot for Arya, his youngest daughter. Eddard also had a bastard son named Jon Snow, who grew up alongside his other children but created some friction between Stark and his wife. Ned proved time and time again that he was a great father who loved all of his children. Ned never believed the claims of a deserter of the Night's Watch that the White Walkers had returned, so he sentenced him to death, claiming he was a madman. In front of his sons Robb, Bran and Jon, the Lord of Winterfell executed the man. Afterwards, Ned told Bran that whoever passes the sentence should carry out the execution, taking responsibility for their decision. The party came across a dead stag and dead female direwolf on their way back to Winterfell. Ned initially wanted to kill the surviving 6 pups. However, Jon argued that they could have been an omen as they represented the sigil of House Stark. Swayed, he accepted the idea, telling his children they had to be looked after themselves. The direwolves grew to be useful companions for the Stark children. Shortly after, a raven informed Eddard that Jon Arryn had died and that King Baratheon was on his way to Winterfell. Stark quickly realised that he was going to be announced the new Hand of the King, an offer he thought about refusing. However, when Robert arrived, he made it clear that he desperately needed the Lord of Winterfell's help. To help Ned decide, Baratheon offered to have his son and heir, Joffrey, marry Stark's daughter Sansa. Eddard was finally swayed when he received a secret letter from Catelyn's sister, Lysan Arryn, who claimed the Lannisters were involved with Jon Arryn's death. Though Bran was found at the bottom of a disused tower deeply injured, Ned reluctantly rode south to King's Landing with the royal party alongside Sansa and Arya. Before leaving, he told Jon that he may not have his name, but he definitely had his blood. Furthermore, he promised to tell Snow about his mother when they next met. Not long after, Robert asked Ned about Jon's mother Wylla, but he deflected the question. When the party arrived in King's Landing, Eddard quickly became immersed in the political atmosphere that surrounded the capital. Ned became furious when he learned of Catelyn's arrival in King's Landing, since she was to stay at Winterfell. However, his wife informed the new Hand of the King that an assassination attempt was made on Bran's life. The blade wielded by the assassin was identified by Petyr Baelish as a knife he had lost in a bet with Tyrion Lannister. The three also concluded that the Lannisters were also behind Bran's original injuries. Eddard then tasked himself with exposing the truth. Later, the relationship between the king and his hand began to tear when Ned refused to sanction the assassination of Daenerys Targaryen, who had fallen pregnant with Khal Drogo's child. Because of this, Ned resigned from his position and planned to return to Winterfell. However, before leaving, he continued his investigations, but was confronted by Jaime Lannister, dueling him one-on-one. The fight ended when a Lannister guardsman stabbed Ned in the leg. Before leaving, Jaime told him that he wanted his brother Tyrion back, who was arrested by Catelyn. The injured Ned woke up in the Red Keep, confronted by the king and his wife Cersei, who was enraged that Stark was not going to be punished for Tyrion's abduction by Catelyn. Robert claimed that Eddard was like a brother to him, and so never accepted his resignation as the Hand of the King. Not wanting to risk another civil war, the king told his hand to make peace with the Lannisters. Though he reluctantly agreed to do so, he worried the situation would lead to a war. The situation became worse when Ned realised none of Baratheon's children were his, as they were all blonde, which contrasted the lineages and histories of the great houses of the Seven Kingdoms, where the Baratheons' dark hair always dominated every match between a member of the house and another. This meant that the royal children had no claim to the Iron Throne. Afterwards, he confronted Cersei, telling her that he knew the truth and would tell the king. However, Robert was mortally wounded whilst on a hunt, so Ned decided to not tell him, allowing him to die a peaceful death. Before passing, Robert named Eddard Protector of the Realm until Joffrey was old enough to take over. Ned transcribed the command, but only referred to Robert's rightful heir, not Joffrey, by name. Not long after, Stark wrote to Robert's brother and true heir Stannis Baratheon, telling him of the truth. Ned then appointed Baelish's help in ridding the Lannisters of power, who recruited the City Watch to his cause. With Joffrey on the throne, Cersei tore up the letter proclaiming Ned as the protector of the realm. In response, Eddard claimed Joffrey had no right to the throne and commanded the City Watch to take him and his mother into custody. However, the City Watch turned on Stark's men, and Baelish held a knife to Ned's throat, claiming that he shouldn't have trusted him. Whilst in the black cells under the Red Keep, the small council member Varys urged Eddard to confess to treason in exchange for exile to the Night's Watch. Stark initially declined, but he quickly realised that the Lannisters had Sansa held as a hostage. In an attempt to bargain with his captors, Ned confessed that he intended to take the throne for himself and from the rightful king, Joffrey. However, on the great set of Baelor and in front of a huge crowd, the king disregarded his mother's requests and had Stark executed. He was beheaded by his own sword shortly after muttering a few unheard words to himself. Eddard's severed head was placed in a spike above the Traitor's Walk in the Red Keep. Joffrey used it as a way of tormenting his future wife, Sansa. The Lord of Winterfell's death caused the eruption of the War of the Five Kings, when the North and the Riverlands broke away from the rule of the Iron Throne. Proclaimed as the king in the North, Robb Stark vowed to avenge his father. Ned Stark may be dead, but it is said that he will reappear in flashbacks in the upcoming Season 6 of the TV series, so that's good news for Sean Bean fans. Anyway, now it's time for this week's question. Do you feel sorry for Sean Bean due to the fact nearly all of the characters he portrays die? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and for more lore content, including Game of Thrones, keep it locked here to the Kangaskhan's. Born as the second of his name, Aerys Targaryen became the final member of House Targaryen to sit on the Iron Throne. As his reign progressed, his behaviour became more and more erratic, with many calling him the Mad King.